Here we are again, ladies and gentlemen. It's the therapist, the lawyer. It's a pleasure to be back. Therapist, how's it going? Talk to the people.
Everything going well. I'm more than ready to work again about Sarah Boone. A lot of things going on with her and her case. We last time talked about the new lawyer. New lawyer is up to speed with the case. He has been asking for more time. He has gotten some denials there. All of them were denied, so he has to continue. It's gonna start the 7th, so this Monday, and is when her case is gonna start. As you know, it's starting with getting all those people that are gonna make that decision. That is very
Absolutely. As you know, it's called. We do the jury selection, so they're going to go through jury selection. The Sarah Boone trial is going to be one for the history books, and considering the horrendous way this person died, and it's my understanding today that we have a special guest. It's an honor to have a special guest here, Dr. Torres. Is that who we're going to have here today?
Yes, we're gonna have the special guests. We're gonna have, that we bring some experts here who help us out to figure what happened. So today we're gonna have Dr. Torres, who's gonna share with us all his knowledge. We're gonna go over some details about the autopsy. So he's gonna help us with that. So
it's going to be a great chance, with Dr. Torres. I'm looking forward to it because it's a great chance to bring to the people some details on how autopsies and how this evidence is used and how it's going to be used in the Sarah Boone case. And I believe that the autopsy is important because considering in the way the person died, there's going to be a lot of evidence that comes from the details of the autopsy report. So I look forward to Dr. Torres being able to help us communicate to the people here this information.
Yes, good thing that you bring that up, because now that the case is going to start, it's good that we can give it a look because that's the main thing about the case, right? The crime that was committed. So it's good that we have the doctor that can guide us with that process and how that's going to look like when the time of the experts comes into the case. So,
well, I got to tell you, therapist, I know we're going to continue the Sarah Boone coverage, but my sleep hasn't gotten any better. I still have images of this person in a suitcase. So, against what my brain tells me when I'm sleeping, I'm going to continue covering this case with you. Okay.
I appreciate that. It's very hard for all of us, and we're going to repeat it today. So we have to be ready. And now the doctor is going to lose a little bit of sleep too, unless he has seen worse. So I'm going to welcome Dr. Torres here.
Hey, Dr. Torres, thank you so much. This is the therapist and the lawyer. It's an honor and it's a privilege to have you here today. I'm very grateful for your time, and welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, and yeah, we'll be sure to share some knowledge and just see what we can make out of this.
Dr. Torres, and here in the therapist and the lawyer, one of the things that we're doing, what we believe is different for the public, is to put together as many experts, as many qualified professionals in the different topics of these incredible controversial cases. So, having you here today to be able to talk about such an important part of this case regarding an autopsy and some of the medical findings, it's a great benefit, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. Looking forward to it as well. Yeah, autopsies are basically what tells us the history of what actually happened, because no one was there besides the people involved. So that's our gateway to knowing and understanding better what occurred that night. So,
absolutely. Yeah. I got to tell you, from my personal experience working on criminal defense cases, and I can even tell you, even in a civil type of case where the client ends up dying, we have looked at the coroner's report, these autopsies, to help us, figure out what kind of case we're dealing with, what details are going to help us. So we'll expand on that with the cases.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it says that it's the victim voice. So autopsy is really the victim voice to get justice.
Exactly.
Or the help to the defense to defend against the case. You know, I'm a criminal defense
Exactly.
lawyer.
It can go either way.
To defend a wrongly accused person, because remember, in the United States of America, you're innocent until proven guilty, and you know, so that's the way we got to go about that. But you're right, Gina. Most of the time is proving that what happened to this person was a crime. So I agree.
That's true. That's true. So I would like to give a little bit of context for the people who are watching, but also for the doctor on how the case is going and where it's at. I think it's important because that way, you know, doctor know what the defendant it's alleging. So right now, as I was saying, the case it's been denied to be extended, but also what she is alleging it's better women's syndrome. That's her main defense. That's where the defense is going. There was some point where her lawyer wanted to go with self-defense, but they kept the battle women syndrome. So I wanted to throw that out there for everybody who's watching us and keep watching us to know where the case is at, but also to give some context to the doctor. So
yeah, and just to touch on what you mentioned with the extension and or what we call in court a motion for continuance, where an attorney is asking the judge, hey judge, I need more time, we want to continue the trial. The fact that the judge denied it is giving a message to a defense attorney like myself, like, oh man, like this is, the judge is not playing around, it's gonna time for the big show. So you know, that's the way the judges control, you know, to get these cases, you know, wrapped up.
And you know, Derek, we've been following the case, and you know, this defendant, how she has been with many lawyers. I think this is the 9th lawyer that she has. So that's why judge said, hey, enough, it's enough. We're going to continue with all this. So that's kind of the reason of why the judge was adept to saying no more time. So I'm going to proceed to share the video of the incident, so that way the doctor can see what happened and have more insight of the situation with
Which video are you going to show him?
The one that actually left us without sleep. You know,
Dr. Torres, I got to warn you, man. I've lost a lot of sleep over this video. I tell Gina, I said, man, you know, sometimes, you know, you can't just unplug this stuff out of your brain. So let's proceed.
Some of these things are just really hard to see. It's like there's no way around it. It's just horrible.
I'm sure you've seen even worse. So, you know, graphic content warning for the public, I guess.
Yes.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Stupid.
Sarah.
That's my name. Don't wear it up.
Sarah. I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
Sarah. 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 Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
That's on you.
Sarah.
Real or ransom. Now you want to get video for it extra. Because I got this.
Sarah.
Real or ransom.
Sarah.
Doctor, I've seen a lot of different ways that people have been died or been killed, but I got to tell you, man, this is the first time I ever seen death by suitcase, or, you know, zip it up in a suitcase.
Bizarre, and like you said, it's like really it's really just hard to watch. Like, so a person is suffering right there, so it's
Yes, and we're gonna have a lot of questions for you, doctor. about that type of death and all this process. And as you said, it's really hard, and even thinking that someone is capable of doing something like that and make fun of it, it make it even worse. So
to make things a little lighter though, can you pop up that screen real quick, Gina, so I can show you something?
sure, let me show you something here.
Okay, just to make things a little lighter, one thing that I kept looking at was that filthy rug. Why is that rug? It looks like they've just been walking on it with dirt for 2 years without vacuuming it once. So, I mean, it just looks like a demon. It just looks horrible. So, I was focusing on the floor to try to even pay attention away from what's happening back there. But I'm like, oh my God, how filthy is that carpet? So, just trying to get a little laughter out of this situation, because besides that, like the doctor said, like this is just like human torture, suffering.
And it makes you think, what kind of conditions are these people living in?
I was about to say that give us a lot of context of family dynamic, that relationship, how was it, this people mental health status, that gives you a lot of context of what could have happened before, during their relationship. So you brought a good point. It's kind of like funny, but also give us what is happening there, that these people, this is how they live. That we also discussed that there was substance use. So again, this provides us that context. So let me also show you, Doctor, a little bit of the interrogation. So Sarah Boone went to the interrogation with the investigators, and they provided a little bit of information about what happened what was wrote in the autopsy. So I want to share that with you. Keep in mind, and I want all the public who's watching this that also understand that sometimes the investigators would not be 100% truthful in information that they shared with the defendant. But I think that mostly it could be, accurate information. That's why I want to share it with you, so you have a little bit of more context as well, and can help us to understand what happened to Mr. Torres when he went through all this torture with Sarah Boone.
And we were informed of some injuries that he had by the doctor. So so he's got scratch marks to his back. I know what that's from. Okay. And it's called a contusion. Do you know what a contusion is? So like basically you're getting hit, and then you get a mark from it. You'll get bruising. Like someone hit you or something like that. It's called a contusion. So he had some injuries to his left shoulder. He had a cut near his lip. We could see his mouth was a little.
I haven't laid a hand on him.
Okay.
Also, too, he fell off my son's bike.
Okay.
So I don't know. And he's notorious for running into the wall or the hall tree. So
okay. What about the scratches? Because there's also sex.
Yes.
Okay. Because there's also like a scratch on the back of his neck, kind of going, but it's going straight across.
I have no idea what that's from.
And they're all recent. They occurred recently. It wasn't something that occurred post or that occurred a week ago or 2 days ago, 3 days ago. They definitely occurred, the night leading up to when he was.
In all honesty, we have not gotten into it.
Okay.
That's why, the only thing I thought you guys were going to ask me about, which I was going to be honest with you anyway, are the scratch marks on his back.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, I have no idea what it is. No idea what it is. Nonetheless, I've had my son over the house too, so.
But your son was there when? When was he last there?
Oh gosh.
My understanding, he was there.
So that's basically what they share during the interrogation. That's what they share about his, what they found when they were doing the autopsy. I know that We also have some information from the affidavit, right, Derek? We
The
got
arrest
that.
affidavit, yes, the arrest affidavit that's filed
Mhm.
by the state prosecutor into the criminal case docket.
Okay, and we're gonna share that so the doctor can give it a look to that, and Derek would kind of like go over it and read it. It's again, what is this, Derek, that we're gonna see?
We're looking at the arrest affidavit. The arrest affidavit is used by the prosecutor here in the state of Florida, and it outlines the basis for the arrest, some of the details, what forms the basis for the arrest. But here, highlighted on the screen, they do include, doctor, in this arrest affidavit, a synopsis of Jorge Torres Jr. autopsy. And this part of the arrest affidavit reads as follows. On February 25, 2020, Jorge Torres Jr. received an autopsy located at the medical examiner's office. During the autopsy, it was noted that Jorge had injuries. Jorge had long nail scratches to his mid upper back, and large nail scratch to the back of his neck, contusions to his left shoulder, left skull and forehead contusions considered blunt force trauma, and a cut near his busted lip. Now, Doc, as we mentioned earlier, the importance of getting an autopsy report and getting the details, whether it's for the prosecution or for the defense, it helps us be able to bring up points that may show that our client was not responsible, or for the prosecution, it'll help them bolster the crime that was committed. And having you here, the first thing that I want to point to is where it notes that he had a left skull and forehead contusion considered blunt force trauma. I wanted to get your take on, when you see that part, blunt force trauma, head contusions, what comes to mind for you? What are we really looking at that there?
Okay, so first thing that comes to mind was this person hit with something, with like an object, or did he fell, or did he trip? I know at some point, didn't get it as clear, but she was mentioning during the interview that someone used to run into the walls. But yeah, like it's a first thing that comes to mind was he beat before he was put in the suitcase, or what events led to him having those contusions?
Because blunt force trauma. Go ahead, doctor. Sorry.
Yeah, like it doesn't go into detail if there was like a skull fracture or anything, which could definitely cause death. But yeah, definitely something to look into. And at least personally, what comes to mind is maybe this person was hit with something.
Yeah, because like with the blunt force trauma part, that's where I feel like, through my experience, you're saying that could signal that he was hit with something, an object, to create that blunt force, or fell that hard on his head.
Exactly, because blunt injury is a really broad term. Like it could refer to like a lot of ways of one getting a like blunt trauma. So that's why I mentioned that we would have to look into like greater detail to see what caused it. Like for example, if you get hit by, let's say, a baseball bat, this would leave a mark, which is like a track mark, which is basically gives the investigators more insight into like actually a bat was used. Like let's see, how could I compare it? It's because different objects leave different types of hematomas. Like it's not the same if you fall, you're gonna get a type of hematoma, but if you get hit with something, you're gonna get a different type. You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
we would have to analyze and go into greater detail, like shape, location. Was it like a small hematoma? Was it like a big area? So yeah.
Yeah, and Gina, thinking about the doctor's comments here, it seems that and correct me, doctor, if he was thrown down the stairs while he was in the suitcase, is it possible that hitting the stairs and tumbling down that could create a blunt force?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
injury?
because it would be equal to from what I could appreciate in the video, it's a soft case suitcase, like no, not suitcase, like it's a soft case luggage. So yeah, definitely that would be equal to just falling down the stairs, because there's no type of protection or anything. And also, like if you've probably seen inside the suitcase you have rails and metal guards. So he could have pretty much hit his head with that as well. So yeah, like if he would have fallen down a flight of stairs while being in the suitcase, he would definitely have
Now,
some
now
serious
in building, in building these type of cases, as a defense attorney world or even the prosecutor, for the public to know, we spend a lot of time talking to the doctors. We spend a lot of time with the coroner, with the expert doctor. Dr. Torres here is giving you an insight of the type of information that we receive to figure out, what Dr. Torres says about the injury, being able to tell us whether it's a bat, whether it's this type of object. This is all happening in the background before it ever comes out into court, before you ever hear an attorney talking about it. And depending on the situation, an expert like Mr. Torres, Dr. Torres here, would be asked to come to testify. So this is kind of showing the public a preview of what's really happening in the Sarah Boone case with her doctor and the prosecutor. Continuing here on some of the details, because, hey, Doc, I'm sure you agree, we have a synopsis, so it's not giving us the full detail. But when the prosecutor here decides to, and I'm just trying to see who exactly signed this arrest affidavit, if it was a deputy officer, but the officer that signs this arrest affidavit, for whatever reason, they decided to include the synopsis, and they get into long nail scratches to his mid upper back, large nail scratch to the back of his neck. When I saw the Sarah Boone interrogation, I thought that she tried to say like, oh, I know how he got that, like, through some sexual, like, trying to explain it away. But really, when you see right there long nail scratches, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't seem that a big deal or something that's what can we really get from those scratches?
Well, what I could get is like, obviously it says in the report they were drinking, so maybe something happened in between, maybe a struggle, maybe like you mentioned, maybe it was something like sexual, like some kind of game that led to him being at the suitcase at the end. But yeah, it could definitely. They actually mentioned one big one towards the area of the neck. And that got me thinking, maybe because she also mentions that he used to strangle her, which made me just have a random idea. Maybe there's some conflict was happening, and the first thing she grabbed was his neck and just went for it. So yeah, there's a lot of like inconclusives there.
Yeah,
that's a good point for the defense. Like if that's something they're gonna look at, and we don't have the entire autopsy, but if that's something like the doctor said, defense can hold into that and say, hey, they were struggling before, because again, I want to remind you that that's their defense.
Yeah, and look, this is incredible that we're doing this, for the benefit of the public, because look, Dr. Torres, we're kind of brainstorming. We're kind of just, hey, what do you see from this? Which is the way our conversations start. When the doctor says, hey, maybe, that could be some sort of, attack or some sort of fight they were having, maybe. As a defense lawyer, I'm saying, yeah, doc, tell me more about that, because we want to create the case that she was, being attacked, and maybe that's the reason why her nail scratches are on him, because she was, a battered woman. I'm sure for the defense, those are points that they want to bolster. So this is the way that happens. Me as an attorney, I get an autopsy. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I speak to a Dr. Torres, and we start brainstorming things. I mean, of course, the doctor's opinion or his suggestions, come from a place of medical, education certainty. When we bring a doctor to testify in the court, of course, the doctor speaks on, what's the highest medical probability of what's happened or what he believes happened. So, we're always in line in the ethical standards of, we have to support it, whether it's by medicine, science, or supported by the law. But that's kind of how that goes.
I have a question for you, Derek, and it's a curious question about, so let's say you have a client that it confessed you that they actually did it, right? No self-defense. And you bring an expert like Dr. Torres and say, hey, that's very consistent with someone probably fighting. would you be using that, or a defense lawyer it's able to use that as a defense, or because they already know that they did it, they cannot use it? Does that make
Yeah, I understand what you're asking. And,
Mhm.
one of the foundations of attorney-client privilege is attorney-client relationship is the attorney-client privilege.
Mhm.
We joke around like, you can't have an attorney say what his client told him, not even if it was the Pope asking. Nobody can force an attorney to
Mm.
disclose any communication from the client. So if a client confesses, says to me, I'm only telling you this.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I have an ethical obligation, and I would be disbarred if I went out there and said, "Hey, my client told me all this stuff, and I'm going to squeal it out." Now, yes, it plays into defending this case. You have this information, you realize, wow, it makes you change your strategy on how you're going to approach it. But ultimately, no, I'm not allowed to give my client's confession
Mhm.
unless the client approves it. But just because she told it to me, I wouldn't even be able to tell the doctor. I wouldn't be able to tell anybody else because of the attorney-client privilege, which is,
Right.
is very important in the court of law, especially in criminal defense cases.
Mhm. And so, and a doctor, I have a question, Dr. Torres. So
Okay, sure.
we brainstorm a little bit here, like Derek was saying, and one thing that we talk about was maybe he was thrown down the stairs. Would you expect that he would be unconscious for a long time after being thrown, or that's something that he could keep conscious even when he was thrown down the
It would,
stairs?
it would definitely depend on how hard, on simple terms, how hard he hit his head, and
Mhm.
if there's like a brain bleed or if there's something like that. But he sounds pretty lucid in the first video we show. Like he's actually communicating. He doesn't sound like he's just anxious and desperate, obviously, because he's
Mhm.
enclosed in that suitcase. But yeah, you could definitely pass out, but it's all gonna depend on how hard you get hit.
Okay. And you said that he was lucid. He was able to coordinate what he was saying, asking. You can hear exactly how he was struggling. So that lead me to ask you. So it seems that probably he died from asphyxia. How long can a person be in a suitcase, before they pass away
Okay,
or
so
pass
a couple
out?
of things are gonna come into play, but
Mhm.
the main thing is oxygen availability. Like how
Mm.
much oxygen was he able to get access to in the suitcase? Was it completely closed? And also another thing we have to take in consideration: this is a full-grown man in a compromised space, which
Mm.
could lead to a kind of mechanical asphyxia, which is when you're like really enclosed and trapped in a place and your diaphragm is not able to move. So you're not able
Mm.
to completely breathe. On top of this,
Mm.
you're getting anxious. You're wasting a lot of oxygen. So it all comes down to how much ventilation he had when he was in the suitcase. And a complete state of hypoxia, I would say 5-10 minutes are enough to put you in a coma.
Yeah,
Oh.
and
Uh,
I see. Go ahead, doctor.
oh yeah, I was just gonna add that 5 minutes is all it takes of hypoxia for brain cells to start to die. So yeah, it's,
Brain.
it's all gonna depend on how crammed up he was in there and how much
Mhm.
oxygen he was getting.
Mm.
I found it interesting the doctor's comment on the diaphragm, like when you're so closed in that you can't even fully breathe out. Because is it possible, doc, that maybe he was getting a little bit of air in there, which is why maybe he even could go longer. But ultimately, let's say with not enough air, but really the closing in of the diaphragm, the anxiety that
Yeah, I
could
would
make it
say
happen.
I would have to say it. In my opinion, it would come down to us when he was starting to get anxious. He started to hyperventilate. That's
Mhm.
when things become more dicey, if we can say it like that. Because in that point, as soon as your brain is not getting enough oxygen, you start to get groggy, you start to get confused until you eventually pass out.
Mm.
And wouldn't the autopsy, since we don't have it in the synopsis, like the autopsy would be able to tell us if he died by asphyxiation or something like that,
Oh
right?
yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Although there's no like when you do a superficial when you go over a dead body, let's just say like that, there's no obvious evidence that points out that this person died of asphyxia. You would have to go to like a more internal, like a more deep investigation of the body to be able to get that information. But yeah, definitely you should be able, because there's bound to be signs of end organ damage, like your organs start to get ischemic. As soon as you're deprived from oxygen. So yeah.
And when they go that deep into that type of forensic autopsy findings, doctor, and just to confirm to the public, they'll be able to even say, when he died, how long he was dead, that type of thing.
I'm not like a forensic pathologist, but yeah, they should be able to tell like the at least the cause and the time.
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
Important. Yeah.
Mhm. I was about to ask that because with Sarah Boone and what she did, she left him there and then she went to sleep and found him the next day. So it was a long long hours that he,
If I would have to take a guess, I would say he was like he didn't make it to the next morning. Like,
Nah, that's the Sarah Boone.
He was long gone by that time.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you can stay for more than 6 hours with limited oxygen. Like there's no.
And she was doing chest compression when she called the next day. Would that make any alteration of if he died from asphyxia or any other concussion or something? Could that make any difference?
I would say besides from giving some extra trauma, like say for example like broken ribs, but it wouldn't affect the because the body's already it's already gone. So
Got it.
besides from maybe if she compressed too hard, she gave him a couple of broken ribs, but that wouldn't affect yeah. The blood is not circulating anymore, so there's not really, you can't cause a hemorrhage, you can't cause like anything else.
All right. That gave us a lot of on
Hey,
how.
I gotta tell you, I still have a hard time believing a story that she left him in the briefcase and went to sleep, and woke up the next day. Doc, my feeling is, Mr. Torres there was long, sleepy, not saying words, and she just left him in that thing. I don't, let's see how this is gonna play out, but.
Yeah, and we don't go far that she actually watched him die and then just went out and went to sleep. Because there's I believe there's another video where the suitcase is actually flipped. Am I correct?
I was about to say that there is another video where the suitcase is in the other side, so she flipped it.
Yeah, but we don't have a time frame, right, between the two videos, so it's impossible for us to state what happened in between those two videos.
I'll tell you this though, doctor, the Sarah Boone trial is starting, I believe it's next week, and eventually we're going to have the benefit of getting more details. Maybe they pull out the autopsy as evidence. So if we do that, it'll be great to have you back, to look at those details. But we do look forward to a lot of that information, and we'll be able to fill in the blanks because, this is what the prosecution is ready to present during this trial.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely. I will keep an eye on it as well. Really interesting case, like both from a psychological standpoint, from the viewpoint of the law, and from a medical viewpoint as well.
Doc, really how flexible does a grown man have to be to fit in that briefcase?
Yeah, just based on seeing it in pictures, I got to see he was a thin man, but the grown man inside a suitcase, I still can't visualize that. It's crazy. Like,
I was thinking, what this guy's like advanced yoga or advanced Pilates or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Where he could put his, I just can't. I still can't imagine how does he get in there, fit in there? You know what I mean? Like that's just mind blowing, huh?
Yeah, that's why it came to mind mechanical asphyxia right away because he's just crammed up inside of there. It's similar to when people go out and they go cave exploring and they get stuck. It's the same, basically the same principle. You get stuck between two rocks. Your body, your chest doesn't have the ability to move anymore. So that's the basically die of suffocation because you cannot breathe. You cannot.
You just introduced to me a new way to die. Getting stuck in the cave. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something, and it's that when someone is also intoxicated with drugs, illegal drugs, or with alcohol, they also became more, let's go like a little bit more flexible or have less notion of their body movement.
And also, I wanted to add because we don't know if we know they were drinking, but we don't know if there were any hard drugs involved.
Exactly.
And in case, let's just bring it up, if you do opioids, that turns down your respiratory drive. So basically people who overdose in opioids die because their respiratory rate goes down to almost zero. So that's another thing to take in consideration is the toxicology screen. Was there a toxicology screen done on both of them? So that further details we had to take in consideration.
That's definitely going to come out. They definitely did a toxicology on the dead guy and her too, because she kept talking about them drinking wine. But
exactly.
I remember this episode with you, Doc, because I put some money that there was some other drugs involved also.
Oh yeah, and we can see it on her her body language when she first got interviewed. You can see the conditions of the house. You can see her on you can hear her on her voice when she's recording. There's a lot of things that lead you to think
there's some reports that says that they have cases of drug use, so that's something that for sure most happened in this case with her. So doctor, now we have a lot of thinking here, Derek. Now we're gonna be like, oh my God, this is how it happened. We got it to put it together. Even not having the entire autopsy, we were able to kind of, think about it. I now have like a movie of how it happens in my brain. Thank you, because the doctor kind of guide us a little bit of what could have been happened there.
I'm interested in finding out, like the doctor said, about the blunt force trauma. Now I'm really interested to find out those details because I think we'll be able to have a good conversation, doctor. Let's see, whether it's blunt force trauma, right, from hitting his head, falling down the stairs. Maybe she hit him with something, while he was in there.
Exactly. I was going to mention that. Maybe he got hit while being in the suit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. We had to look at images, like the autopsy would give us a lot. Like there's a brain bleed. Was the brain swollen? It's a lot of things to go into. But yeah, definitely we'll get more information. Sounds great.
Well, I have to thank you. I'm going to thank you myself too. Derek already said thank you, but I'm so excited to have you here. You provided a lot of insight for us and our viewers. So I cannot wait to have you back when we have that trial and everything about the autopsy. So we could see if that was something where we already talked, you got it there, or they provided even with more details.
Okay, perfect. It's awesome being here. This was a pleasure.
Hey, Doctor,
thank you guys.
If I can tell you, it's a pleasure, and I gotta tell you, one of my favorite parts of what I do is talking to my medical colleagues. I can't tell you how important, the contributions that I've gotten from doctors like yourself to help clients. So thank you so much for your time. It's a privilege, and I look forward to having you again.
Of course, yeah, for sure. I'll be happy to be back. Just let me know.
Thank you.
Dr. Torres, hey, for the people, Dr. Torres, you want a good doctor in your city, find Dr. Torres.
Definitely. That was awesome, Derek. Having him here, I'm more amazed. I'm more like, oh my God, now I'm going to be the one not sleeping. I couldn't sleep because of that, but now I have too many movies in my head thinking this is the way it happens. And it's sad. It's horrific. Now we're going to see all the case.
Don't be surprised when we find out that she hit him with something. The doctor, man, he sparked my head with that.
Yes.
Because, do we know how many stairs, right? There's the concept that she threw him down the stairs. Is that some information that you have?
Yes, that it's that it's another theory that she threw him down the stairs while he was in the
While he
suitcase.
was in the thing.
Yes. So there's two theories that being around. It's that somehow she put him in the suitcase. Somehow, I don't know how, but somehow she put him in the suitcase. My first thought was he was intoxicated, and then she got to put him there. The other theory is that, and then she flipped it, right? And so that way he couldn't go out. So she put him there, and then she flipped it so that way she couldn't go out. Now the other theory is that he was in the suitcase and she threw him out, down the stairs.
Okay. Me right now,
Mm-hmm.
from what I think I know, I'm more leaning that the blunt force trauma was from getting hit by something, because I think there's a chance that you fall down the stairs,
Mm-hmm.
and even though you hit your head, it's not necessarily blunt force trauma. I agree with the doctor that usually when we're using the words blunt force trauma, it's a direct hit. It's a kind of like a blunt situation. So, remember I said it. I believe she probably hit him with something while he was in there. And again, Gina, I still can't gather. I can't imagine the scenario, how he got in. I know you say, did she put him in? For some reason, there's nothing in me that says, oh, yeah, she put him in there. But then I think about, so he put himself in there? And I'm like, why would he do that? So that part is just incredible. Like, there's the most bizarre set of facts, to deal with. And I don't know, maybe throughout the coverage of the trial, we find out something about how that happened. But don't be surprised if we go this whole trial. That's one of the mysteries that never gets solved. Because remember, Sarah Boone and her lawyer are going to want to say that they played hide and go seek, that this was part of some, weird game that they had. Listen, I've seen a lot of crazy shit as a defense attorney, a civil attorney. I've seen people that do crazy stuff, in private time. But this whole playing hide and seek in a suitcase, that's new one.
Yeah, it is new one. Well, Derek, we're gonna still covering Sarah Boone. Like we said a lot of time here now, that case is gonna start next week. We're gonna be back after they do all the process. Selecting.
So the people understand, what's gonna happen next week is they're gonna begin jury selection. And jury selection for an attorney like myself, and it's 5% of lawyers that even do trial work. Jury selection is a process. It's a very technical process that we prepare more than you could imagine. I mean, even before we get to picking a jury, usually we're having focus groups. We pay organizations that help us put people together to do like a focus group, like a fake jurors, to see what people react to more, what people, so that when we're actually picking the jurors in the case, we're kind of looking to see if we can match that and who we think maybe have that same reaction. So, while it doesn't seem like much, and usually, for the public, all they see is when the case starts, there's a jurors there. But the jury selection process, some lawyers will say, is the most important part. Some people, some of my colleagues say, and I say this too, sometimes you win the case in jury selection. And throughout that process, you're going to have the defense attorney, the prosecutor, what we call doing voir dire. Voir dire is when we get to ask the jurors questions and get to conversate with them to figure out if we can find any biases that the law allows us to ask the judge to strike them out, or we try to find different reasons in law why we can ask the judge to strike that person out. But ultimately, jury selection could go a day, could go 2 days. I've been in jury selections where, they bring out, 40 people and we go through all of them and we're not able to pick a full jury. So now we got to wait, and they bring out another group of people. So jury selection, let's see how long they go about it. But, I want to impress on the public that it just doesn't poof. These people are there. The attorneys have meticulously, vetted these people, spoken to these people. And usually both sides are looking to try to get people on the jurors that they know would be benefit to their case.
And you guys, when you do this focus group, like you ask question or you present like the case?
We
and
present
see
like the case. Yes, it's like a mock trial.
A mock trial, you have someone that is representing the defense and the
Yes.
other one prosecutor. All right, with all the details and all the information. And that's how you get to know if it's a female, the age. I have heard those things, right?
Yeah. So an example, like, we did a jury focus group recently, and the topic, I remember we were focused on, hey, it seems like the people that are in this age range, the people that are over 50, they are accepting this what we're presenting, or they're more receptive to it. And then we find out that the younger ones, they didn't even believe in it. They didn't want nothing to do with it. So what does it tells us? When we're doing a jury selection, we're trying to pick the older people that we know will be more into what we're trying to present. It gets down to that, believe it or not.
Got it. Okay. Well, you said it. Thank you for explaining that, so our people know how the process works. We're not going to cover that part. What we're going to do is kind of when the trial starts, we're gonna react. We're gonna have those videos. We're gonna talk about. Are you gonna guide us on all that process? Let's see, as we spoke before, how the dynamic was there. If they bring any psychologists to talk about her behavior, her past, her story, which I'm expecting that too, her demeanor, like everything about her, and see, what we can gather from it and discuss it. So we're going to, as soon as trial start, we're going to follow Sarah Boone. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing that we'll be talking about is those opening statements. Those opening statements by the prosecution and the defense attorney is going to give us the outline of which way they're presenting their cases. A good, depending on the case, but I would say usually a good opening statement is going to tell the jurors, this is what you should expect to see, to hear. These are the experts that we're going to bring to you, and each expert is going to tell you this. So I look forward to covering the opening statement again with the therapist, the lawyer. It's a pleasure to be here always, and I look forward to the next one.
Bye.